Welcome again to another in our series of People, Places, and Things of the Bible. Our topic for today is Before I Formed You, and our reading comes from the Old Testament prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 through 8. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Then I said, Lord God, behold, I do not know how to speak, for I am only a youth. But the Lord said to me, Do not say I am only a youth, for to all to whom I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. I have heard on more than one occasion someone tell me, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what your plans are. Now, that being said, one should not think that it is wrong or going against God to make plans for your life. But to leave God out of the equation is a recipe for folly for disciples. Our passage for today is a reminder of God's ability to direct the affairs of the world. The psalmist wrote, For kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. Psalm 22:28. Nebuchadnezzar learned it the hard way in Daniel chapter 4. Belshazzar saw the writing on the wall that let him know of God's power. Cyrus the Great was a shepherd of God, though he ruled a great empire. Over and over, we read of great men and nations that were instruments of God by design. Men and women thrust to greatness because it was the pleasure of God to do so. These are great people that God had called to do great things. But I sit here in my modest surroundings, in an obscure position, in a remote region of a flyover state, as they call it, and think to myself, sure, God called these people to do great things in a great time of history. But what of small people like me? And I know that someone will snap back the oft-quoted adage, there are no small jobs, only small people. The real question for today's passage is, how far beyond the immediate context of this verse can one carry this? Flip a few pages forward to chapter 29 and verse 11, and you have a verse that is often quoted by those who speak of their calling. But again, how does it apply outside of its immediate context? Can I take these two passages and wrangle them to fit my life? Am I overinflating my own importance by inserting myself into these passages? Are they meant for anyone beyond Jeremiah and Judah? As you can tell, the one question we want answered usually carries in tow many follow-up questions. There are two extremes at work here in the passages such as these. On one hand, we want those who want to own these principles to feed their egos. On the other hand, we have those who deny God's design in their lives whatsoever. Somewhere between these two divergent beliefs lies the answer. Somewhere between God spoke to me in a dream last night and God doesn't do that kind of stuff anymore is where the reality exists. Televangelists have long used the God raised me up, wheedle untold millions of dollars for personal gain. Yet to deny that God works in the affairs of men today is to deny his sovereignty as ruler of the universe. Yes, God knew us in our mother's wombs before we were born. Yes, God has a desire for us to serve him. Yes, it is God that we owe for our abundance of gifts and talents. But we are accountable for the decisions we make in accordance with the above facts. God expects us to seek him in his word. In his word, we find our directives to go to the lost. In his word, we find guidance and wisdom to lead us in difficult times. In his word, we are led to what we are to desire in this life. In his word, we find passages that lead us to pray for God's providence in our daily lives. God rules in nations and rulers. but he also rules in his church and in the hearts of his servants. Our task is to make sure our heart will let him rule, to make sure that in all things we acknowledge, thy will be done. And Lord willing, let's meet here again tomorrow and look at more people, places, and things in the Bible.